Welcome to your first panel of the morning. I'll let my panelists take their seats.
Oh.
Wherever you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, wherever you're comfy.
Okay.
We've already been introduced, and we have half an hour, and we have a truly excellent panel that I want to hear a lot from. So I'm just going to go straight in. Gerhard, if you would kick us off, and we're all going to ask you the same question to get us started. Essentially, why are you here? Why should the people in this room be excited about digital twins? And give us a little taste of what you are doing at Siemens with this technology.
So we at Siemens have the clear idea that we are the company combining the real and the digital worlds. Basically, we use the digital capabilities to make the real world a better place. Could be we improve processes and stabilities, but can, of course, also very big focus on sustainability. And in that part, digital twins play an enormous role because we look at how can we make better products, how can we produce better, and how can we help our customers also to service better their products and generate more value out of them. So the digital twin for us is an important element to understand these type of assets. And then moving on to the industrial metaverse, which we're going to talk about today a lot, I think, is how do we get collaboration included so that we get different stakeholder views and get the best outcome, not only for the individual asset, but maybe for a group or for society.
Great. Holly, Gerhard's a kind of power plants and trains man. You're a ships woman.
Yeah. Well, when we've moved well beyond ships, so Holly Landry, Chief Data Officer at Maersk, and we have multiple digital twins because we're actually helping Siemens, Shell, and probably many of you and your customers help move things. And our purpose is to integrate the world, and one of the best ways we can do that is with the digital twins. Whether it's in the warehousing, our transportation network is a massive complex, way more complex than what any human brain could possibly calculate. So we use these twins in combination into the supply chain metaverse. And as you say, we're really supercharging humans. This isn't about replacing people, it's about giving them better information to make better decisions. That includes our employees, but also more importantly, our customers. I don't know how many of you experienced you couldn't get toilet paper in the pandemic, our favorite example, but we've moved well beyond that, but there's still supply chain bottlenecks, and so we use these twins to give reliability, predictability to our customers so that all of you can get your soon-to-be Christmas presents coming in December.
Karina, same question to you. You're oil and gas.
Yep. So in Shell, we have matured a digital twin program over the last 3 years in the asset management space. Mainly, we really see it being a virtual representation of the physical elements and the dynamic behavior of our assets over its life cycle. So in the design phase, operate phase, and decommissioning phase. And literally, again, as what was said, bringing the physical and the digital together, where we are able to help our engineers touch the steel remotely, and also understand the dynamic behavior in our production and manufacturing processes of our electrons and molecules, which is important of how we then optimize and operate safely, right? So we really see that it has also helped us over the last years transform to become a more data-driven organization, because it has helped us understand better our structured, unstructured data in the context with 2D, 3D visualization, which if you have seen our facilities, these are massive, right? You feel so small when you look at it, and imagine all the data that is flowing through that whole chunk of steel in front of you, right? So we recognize the value of context that is now being brought, that brings these deeper insights. Again, that helps us operate and optimize in a safe way. It helps us see the bigger picture and zoom in when we need to. As we operate, it gives us real-time situational awareness, helps improve shift handovers, right? So, and in short, it's also in terms of the whole digital transformation journey, bringing the physical and digital together. Shell being a company that has strong core physics, chemistry, engineering background, has laid the foundation towards the next wave of digital innovations with regards to physics-informed neural network or scientific machine learning, and also generative AI.
Thanks, Karina. And last but not least.
Yeah, I think to explore that concept a little further, digital twin is really a key enabler to digital transformation. And if you think about it, pandemic estimates have said that accelerated digital transformation by anywhere from 5 to 10 years. So you couldn't get to your assets. You couldn't get to your people. You couldn't get to even your offices. So what did you do? You automatically digitally transformed. But did you do that with a mindset towards sustainable digital transformation? And that's where now we can look at that across the different areas that the digital twin can provide, from that data decision-driven decisions, and also looking at it across the different aspects.
Gotcha. Did the pandemic accelerate this for all of you? I mean, Holly, maybe let's just start with you. Was this something that was happening within Maersk pre-pandemic? I assume it was. Give us a sort of characterization of the accelerant that was provided by everyone only being able to interact through a screen. Were there boardroom and paper processes that got transformed into screen and Zoom processes? And tell us a bit about how that worked.
Absolutely. So we've been on this journey for quite a while, and it started in our terminals business around lean and flow. So you can't just, if you try to optimize what isn't predictable and standard, you're going to constantly be optimizing the wrong thing. And so again, just like in our terminal, much like the Shell, this landscape is very, very complex. So there was no choice, and certainly it accelerated in Corona, and we certainly now are able to have much more throughput. I think that's one piece of it. I think the other piece is, again, the moving signals globally. So the amount of data that we can collect now through cloud capabilities and these others that are expanding to every corner of the world. I mean, one of the most exciting things for us is that, we are lifting entire countries out of poverty with, being able to move these goods and create markets that didn't exist before, and then do so sustainably. I mean, that's been, a huge play. We have 14 new green vessels coming soon, so there's a huge lift, and that's all enabled with this digital infrastructure.
Now, Gerhard, we were talking about the sort of definition of the metaverse, and to some extent, the metaverse is the latest sort of round of the way we talk about computers, and that's fine. We all need common ground to come together at things like this, but you had a good, more technical definition that I liked, which was that it's when multiple stakeholders, not all in the same organization, are looking at the same piece of digital equipment, asset, whatever. Can you tell us a bit about the kinds of stakeholders that tend to be looking at the same asset under your purview at Siemens?
First of all, I think when you have a digital twin, that sort of gives you the representation of that asset with the dynamics included. So, of course, you have always used that in engineering already in the past. So that's not new. What is changing now, from my perspective, when we talk about the metaverse, is you get different stakeholders in there. Like you have the engineer, you might have a safety specialist, you might have a marketing person, supply chain person saying, given the circumstance I have, the complex system we're in, what is the best thing I can do? Given that we have supply chain problems, for example, what we see with our customers is that decision points in production have to be moved backwards as much as possible. Because they might only know like a few hours in advance that a certain shipment is arriving or not arriving, because not even on ships, but maybe it's just on a lorry somewhere in a traffic jam. So how late can they decide? What is the best option given all the circumstances? Which contracts do they need to fulfill? What are the penalties included? Who is suffering for what? When you get all these people together, we played in, my background has originally been in rail space. So we played it around for Oktoberfest in Munich, when you're trying to combine the rail operator, the maintainers, but also the safety people in the city, everybody trying to make sure that these huge flows of a couple of million people actually happen. You take a decision where there's no optimum out there. What is the best decision taking all circumstances into account? That is where the industrial metaverse plays an enormous role. And that goes far beyond individual digital twin.
Yeah.
But also, the last point to that is, what we should keep in mind, when we talk about metaverse, it looks like it's a vision for the future. A lot of that is already there. Point solutions, yes, absolutely. But they are happening. The example I showed from Oktoberfest, that is happening. That's reality. It's not 10 years out.
And if I could build on that, I mean, the integrator, which is our ambition at Maersk, so we are moving beyond the shipping. I mean, the shipping is core, and it's, our seafarers do a wonderful job, but what we're starting to do, again, to your point on the lorries and connect the trucks and the warehouses, and what we can do now in these warehouses is, before we build it out, co-create with our key partners, amazing customers like IKEA or Volvo, and in that metaverse, you can actually look at all the different scenario planning that, again, is just too far, complex for humans, and we can really partner with our customers and our suppliers also, more importantly, right?
Is it right to think about this in terms of it's not like big complex things haven't happened on the planet long before we've been calling it the metaverse or whatever. But I wonder if the difference is that for those complex things like moving goods around the world or big crowds at big festivals, you had to have just one very clearly defined policy that couldn't really take in a lot of complexity. You had to do it simply because there was no other option. You didn't have enough computation or ability to process. Is what this lets you do to manage things in a more complex way, essentially be much more efficient because you don't just have to choose one simple policy. You can compute more policies that are possible across different things. Is that a reasonable way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've doubled our throughput in some of the key, again, warehouses, transportation networks, and then, again, in our terminals, doubled the throughput. Now, sort of, again, good news, bad news, there's more things coming to your house. Obviously, in the US, there's Amazon, 2-day Prime, so it just really is about that efficiency play, but also just that commitment to get things where they need to be the most efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's what we haven't been able to do.
Can I come back to
Yeah, of
your
course.
first question about has the pandemic helped? I think in an organization or some organizations out there that are as old as Shell, for example, right? The technology is not what is hindering the transformation. It is the trust in the technology, right? And the pandemic forced us to open our eyes and our ears, and so kind of like helped accelerate the debate that it is useful, it can happen, we should use more of it. Right? And just coming back to the points made on remote engineering, connecting effectively, collaboration, people across the world, not even in the same continent, but being able to do that in an effective and secure way, working with third parties. Right? So for us, really, there was a big jump in trusting the technology that helped to accelerate the transformation journey, and also working with third-party EPCs, and always taking out misinterpretation, because we know we are all talking about the same thing, looking at the same thing, how it has behaved in the past, and what exactly is happening right now. I just wanted to add that point.
Dan, I want to come to you with a question, but I just want to say to the audience, if you have a question, we've got 15 minutes left. Put your hand up and the mic will find you and I will come to you. So for any time from now, just put the hand up and I will spot you and we'll come to you, and we'll keep going in the meantime. So there's this idea that the metaverse is going to be digital assets that are looked at by multiple stakeholders, and that sounds a little bit to me like the definition of the internet. One computer is not the internet, two computers starts to be the internet. And the internet was defined by standards. So I wonder, Dan, with your sort of across the piece hat on, do you see standards emerging for these things? Is Holly's model going to be able to plug and play with Gerhardt's model anytime soon?
Yeah, I think that is one of the challenges that we're seeing and one of the things we're working to address. Digital Twin Consortium is not a standards body per se, but we do work and understand and drive those standards requirements into those different areas. And just in that same context, there isn't going to be one standard for a digital twin. There's so many different variations, so many different applications, so many different areas. We see digital twin adoption across virtually every single industry now. So where we see really is looking at it from the capabilities. That those capabilities, yes, there are standards that exist. The key is to really allow that data flow to be able to go through those different system of systems. So think about scaling from a smart building to a smart city to a smart country. And how do you ensure that data flow? And that's where really one of the big challenges to address is that interoperability.
Yeah. We will come to this gent in the front in just a second, but I have one last question for all of you, which is, to prepare for moderating this, I started reading Neuromancer on Friday, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. And what we're talking about here right now is nothing like Neuromancer. I mean, fair play, it was written in 1984, but 1986 maybe. But my point is, should we be expecting a move towards this world where you interact with data in a kind of geographical, like I go over to the blob of data here, like that's the kind of original, he conceived of the metaverse in the beginning, right? Should we be expecting that? Like, is that the direction of travel? My own view, it seems like it's not going that way at all. It's screens and it's sheets of stuff and it's lots of people doing lots of things. But Dan, start us off, what do you think?
So you should read pattern recognition.
Okay, right.
Then you'll start to see some of these parallels coming out through that.
Okay.
But if we think about what the digital twin really does, is it provides that bridge between a virtualization and the physical. And that's really what's happening, is to ensure that we're talking enterprise metaverse, to ensure that the precision and accuracy is there. You need to really have that so that it behaves, your virtualization behaves and adheres to the laws of physics, to the laws of nature. That's that bridge, and that's what the digital twin provides you. It provides you that context in the real world to now have that accuracy and precision and representation in the virtual world.
So next time I want to hack Siemens systems, I will just be able to throw a rope into the ice or whatever it is. Let's go to this gent in the front with a question here. And please just identify yourself very briefly.
Tiberius Ignat from Scientific Knowledge Services. So the question, the mic couldn't come more timely because I wanted to ask about accuracy of representation. So if we think about digital twins, of course we can't avoid speaking about accuracy. And if we speak about this, how do you evaluate, how do you assess programs of evaluating this accuracy over time? From practical questions about how much we want to make this twin identical or not, to more philosophical questions regarding the ethics of and where do we want to push the frontier of identity, digital identical representations or not. So any comments on that?
Yes, so if you think about it in terms of accuracy, think about a digital twin, and we're seeing this in healthcare especially, and continuing. One of our members is Dassault Systems, and they've been doing a virtual heart. And it's incredible the level of precision and accuracy that they have been able to bring forward. Another example, in fact, this is one of our members, one of our working groups. We have 12 different domains or working groups within the consortium. We started with 4. As we've grown our membership, going from originally 50 to now closing over 170, and we see that continue to grow. One of our members came forward as part of the Healthcare and Life Science Working Group and said, well, let me give you an example of a digital twin, and the level of accuracy and precision must be there because there's a digital twin of his brain. And this gentleman suffered from epileptic seizures, grand mal seizures, where he was not able to function before in society. He went through different doctors' research centers, and what they did was they actually figured a way by capturing, understanding the areas of his brain that were being affected. So they created a digital twin of his brain, and then they implanted electrodes in his brain, and they were able to actually moderate the level of the seizures that he was experiencing. Now you tell me about a transformative outcome using a digital twin. I can't find another better example of that, but you better have that level of precision and accuracy because you're now implanting electrodes to control this. In fact, he told me just the other day, he said, yeah, I just got my new operating system. My OS just got upgraded because he has BLE communicating directly to that.
Holly, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty fortunate, so we're not doing brain surgery. And I think for us, it's really been about pick the right problem to solve. First, AI and digital twins are not relevant to everything. And then as you pick that problem to solve, what is that level of accuracy that's needed? And it really needs to be a balance because these are not cheap. Imagine if every human brain had a digital twin, that'd be no more planet, game over for us from a digital infrastructure perspective. So we are very cautious. We use a lot of open source and cloud capabilities to make sure that we're very efficient in making sure that the level of accuracy meets the outcome that we need.
Just to quickly build on that as well, I think apart from the accuracy, is also in what is the risk context that you're trying to manage. And so what level of accuracy do you have to? And for us, it's a big thing because safety and sustainability is very big. And so it always coming back to the problem we're trying to solve, what is the risk profile that you're working with, and then what is that, but how do you ensure quality data? It always comes back to data.
I would like to add one other point. I think we always talk now about the digital twin as a representation, and you suggested with the reference to the neuromancer, we're looking at that data. Actually, we have to look at the insights we generate. So digital twin is for me also just a foundation, helps me to understand where do I need to look. I don't want to know every single piece happening in a factory. I want to know where do I have a bottleneck? Where do I have to take a decision? So comparing digital twin to the model you want to have, identifying what you need to do, what takes your attention, that is the interesting part. So for me, again, digital twin creates you a reference reality. Like we have a model where we look into very complex devices that are operating where the twin, we run the real device, we run the twin device in parallel, and we look at deviations. This way we can spot degradation and possible dangers in a production process without having to put in thousands of sensors. We can do a very simple way by running in the real-time digital twin. Accuracy, how good do you need to be? Do I need to be very precise? When I do something on somebody's brain, I do need to be very precise. If I have a production process, maybe I can live with a 2 or 3% deviation. That depends on the type of question I'm trying to answer.
And I
No.
think that also-
We've reached the point of the panel where you guys could just talk amongst yourselves. And that's great. That's perfect. That's panel peak optimum point. That's great. But we've got some more questions from the floor, which I would love to take. Yes, sir, at the back with the mic, and then next this guy.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Damon Kierton, Senior Journalist for XR Today. Just had 2 questions. The first is, how do you communicate return on investment to a lot of the people who are using these systems? I know that companies like Lenovo, I know that Siemens has also done that quite a bit. The second question is, are you able to use this to create predictive models that are allowing you to create future systems? I know that people are including that with AI as well, to kind of look at what's been created, monitor the progress of it. You were mentioning something about the degradation as well of the infrastructure, and then use that to create future systems.
Okay, I'm going to beg you to be swift, and briefly the question was, how do you communicate ROI, and are you using your digital twins to sort of build predictively future systems?
So for ROI communication, there's 2 approaches. The simple one is we calculate what the best process could be. The real thing what we do is we eat our own dog food, we actually implement it ourselves, and then see the uplift. So we created a factory in Shenzhen. We have 30% more output at 40% less space, at 20% less energy. That is convincing, and that is a reference that the customers actually enjoy. Looking at future parts, absolutely. When you want to do something like predictive maintenance, as an example, you have to understand degradation patterns and all these topics. If you don't, you're stuck.
Yep.
So you have to prognose the future.
Our biggest aim is actually, again, to supercharge the humans. And so we look first at engagement. So we spend a lot of focus at Maersk on employee engagement. That's kind of our biggest, and we went up by almost an entire point. When you make these tools for the people that are going to use them, not for tech, and I think that's the biggest mistake we make, which is, we think this is a tech tool. It's actually not at all. The other 2 are really, again, around throughput, so efficiency, and then finally just equipment. A lot of the equipment that we all use is extremely expensive, and so to the extent that we can pull that out, that's everything from forklifts, chassis, trucks, and everything in between. And so those are really the 3 that we put together. But the biggest, again, is supercharging the humans, making sure that they have the right information to make the right decisions.
Yeah, for us, it's really been about big productivity gains, because if you have to imagine between various disciplines, maintenance, reliability, inspection, process engineering, and all the inefficiencies within that productivity gain has been huge. Taking people out of harm's way, avoiding having to do trips that are potentially hazardous to site. You can do a lot more off-site collaboration. Of course, where we bring more AI into the whole intelligence mix, predictive maintenance, something we do. But it's, for me, really helping people to become more data-driven. Also, the way we now build up brownfield assets. It's not a digital twin of a physical asset. It is a digital asset first, and then you build the digital twin. So it is redefining the way we operate and run our assets in a more safer and sustainable way as well.
Yeah, so I think aligned with all of what you heard really is really understand first what job are you hiring the digital twin for? And then look at those capabilities that are needed to achieve that objective. And then from that, look at the type of data, look at the optimal technology to accomplish that, and understand the data that you have. Do you need to supplement that with, or enrich that with synthetic data? And follow that path from that standpoint. One of the examples is really looking at it from that low-hanging fruit. Go after that low-hanging fruit, start small, but scale out very quickly. So take small bites, but chew very fast.
Thanks, Dan. Dietary advice there. Yes.
Hello, I'm Bertie. my question really is, you can answer it as vaguely or as specifically as you like. If you had unlimited budget and access to any sort of talent or any people you need, what would be the one pain point that you would address or you would fix with using digital twins in the workplace? And you can only do one.
One thing, one sentence answers, and then we can get in this gent's question back there as well. What's one thing, Gerhard?
There's so many digital twins that there's not the one thing. For me, it would be combining the physical know-how, the engineering know-how, with the data know-how and the simulation part. Because if they don't coincide, the digital twin is mostly, at least in our field, useless.
Yeah, so for us, it's the dependencies and handoffs between the different participants. And so, that's our thing. We're also very, very focused on our customer experience. And so if we could just, make that super seamless, automated, that would be huge for not only us, but obviously everyone sitting in the room.
I'm going to come back to the data. The data is really the foundation of anything digital. The more we can automate data cleansing, because we sit on a mountain of data, we are only scratching the surface. And the more we can invest in helping people use also generative AI to drive automated data cleansing, I will always focus on the data.
Dan, extremely quickly.
Yeah, I think going back to the point I raised earlier is the interoperability. It really ties into the integration of these system of systems. And how do you bring those together to ensure that flow of data?
Okay. The clock has started screaming at us, so very quickly, Aziz, you're right, because you hold the mic.
Thank you. Dave Sweeney, Meta for Work. I wanted to elaborate on the human element of the digital twins, particularly when we're talking about operational digital twins. The value is really only seen when you're empowering people to make better decisions on the ground from an operational perspective. I liked Holly's comment around supercharging humans. It's very, very much on point. Adoption can always be a problem when there's a big human element involved. What initiatives are you doing to encourage or drive that?
Why don't we just go to you, Holly?
Yeah, so look, we actually start with the people that are going to use it. So we don't go off on the side. We actually start, we observe, we do sort of a cultural observation of how are you doing this today? And then we ask those individuals to own their process, own that standardization bit, and they really help us co-create. Is how we like to think about it. And we try to remove the disintermediator. There's a lot of layers it can be between tech and the actual people. And, I thought we'd get out of the panel today without talking about generative AI, but I can't help but mention, doing a lot of talks about this recently, but that really gives us, again, to the neuromancer kind of, how is this going to work? I think it's going to be really, really different. I think the clicks and the screens are not going to be needed. I don't know when. There's a lot of course, people betting on when that's going to happen, but I think it just needs to be much more intuitive, and that's what we see. When we create tech tools for tech, they're very complicated and the people can't use them, but when you actually co-create it with the actual users and, in our warehouses, they know best how to pick and pack. I'm terrible at it, obviously. Tried it, but very terrible at it. Also terrible at moving the container on the crane, so that's what we need to really focus on, is just, who's actually going to use it.
Exactly.
You heard it here first. We will all soon be jacking in and cutting ice, so that's great. I really look forward to that. We're completely out of time. Thank you very much, Dan, Karina, Holly, and Gerhard, for, I think, a very dense session, full of information, really entertaining. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking them.